With Nebraska's harvest complete in soybeans and moving to the end in corn, some farmers might be thinking about nitrogen application for next season's crop. Because putting on nitrogen in the spring or around planting or while the crop is growing is more efficient, UNL doesn't generally recommend fall applications. We discussed that suggestion with Charles Shapiro earlier this week at UNL Extension's fall conference in Kearney. When deciding how to apply nitrogen, UNL researchers say it's important to remember the 4 R's of nutrient management: the right time of application, the right fertilizer type, the right placement, and the right application rate.
The 4 R's are important because they cover the management that's needed for fertilizer. It boils it down into an easily remembered set of practices.
When you look at fall application, if producers are thinking about doing it before winter, is it as efficient in the fall as it would be in the spring?
Well, the timing factor, the right timing factor is important, but you also have to take into account the environment in which you're doing the application. So many parts of Nebraska where we have sandy soils, it probably isn't the best timing because of the potential for leaching.
But in the other soils it could be?
The problem is there's always a potential of loss. The heavier the soil, the less likely. So it really depends. It's probably best to put the fertilizer, mostly nitrogen, on when the crop needs it, so that way that would be the spring.
Last year was obviously much different than where we are right now. Last year around this time we didn't have much moisture in the soil, but this year we're doing quite well. How does that make it different?
The soil profile, let's say you can hold 6 to 8 inches of moisture. If you have that already in the soil, when you get a 4 or 5 inch rainfall, you're going to move water down and then the nitrogen will move in it. When it's dry soil, then you have a reservoir to absorb moisture or snow melt through the winter and spring.
If you're thinking about doing it in the fall, what are some things that you want to take into account before you go out and make that application?
Well, going back to the 4 R's, you need to have the right fertilizer. We suggest using an anhydrous ammonia because you can put it in the ground. It's not on the surface. And so the other thing would be to wait until the soil temperatures are below 50 degrees. The microorganisms that convert the anhydrous ammonia to leachable nitrate don't work as much when the temperature is below 50.
Why would it be more valuable to apply nitrogen as you need it, maybe during the growing season, and to do so below the soil as opposed to on top of it?
The biggest loss mechanism probably would be volatilization, where if you put the nitrogen on the surface, it can be lost to the atmosphere. So putting it below the surface guards you against that. Also putting it in small doses. Again, we don't want to have a lot of nitrogen in the soil when the crop doesn't need it. So if you put it on through the pivot or side dress or something like that, right before the crop needs it, you get the most efficient use.
Overall, I mean, the desire is to get just the right amount in there so that you don't lose it or it doesn't run off. If you're doing it during the season, then even you probably want to take into account what's already in the soil, maybe do some soil sampling.
We recommend soil sampling. The spring is better, although a lot of soil is sampled in the fall. If you sample in the fall, one has to keep track of the moisture to see if there's any leaching and make either more nitrogen afterwards or resample.
In the age of technology, obviously there are different things you could probably use, and some of them are aerial sensors to kind of look at what the crop is doing.
Yeah, since we can't really predict what the weather's going to be or when there's rainfall, one new avenue that they are exploring in depth is using a crop sensor and then let the plant tell you when it needs nitrogen. And hopefully you would be able to apply it with either a side dress rig or through the center pivot.